requirements? Yes, sir. So me and Jeff talked about it a little bit this afternoon. See the special exceptions. I didn't know that market government use beginnings of nation. Like they're on 7 house meeting. There were no special exception requirements.
We'll be starting in a couple minutes. We're waiting on our town administrator to come back. Yeah. That's when we're going to have the event. They didn't want to do it when they had all the things. everyone got nice and calm. We're going to get started as soon as we get our councilman and our town administrator back into the room. All right, I'm going to call to order the town council regular meeting on Tuesday, August 18th, 2026. Our invocation will be done by Pastor David Clanton of the Groves Church.
Let's pray. Father God, we thank you for this day you blessed us with. Thank you for this opportunity to come together as citizens of this great town. And thank you for those who've given their time and effort to be here tonight to share what's on their mind, what's on their heart. Thank you for those who've given their time to serve by making decisions that will affect us all. Lord, we're thankful for this community in which we live, for so many beautiful things and beautiful people that we get to share this space together. And we just pray your protection and your guidance for those who make decisions over it. I pray, Lord, we are acting in accordance with your will for us and always seeking your best. Lord, we love you. We pray all these things in your name.
Amen. Pledge of allegiance will be done by Council Member Sweatman.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight we have a proclamation for Overdose Awareness Day in Moncks Corner. Accepting the proclamations are Nancy Stedman Shipman, founder and executive director of Wake Up Carolina, and J.R. Weaver of Wake Up Carolina. If y'all will come up to the podium. Overdose Awareness Day will be Monday, August 31st, 2026. Whereas on Monday, August 31st, 2026, the town of Moncks Corner, in partnership with Wake Up Carolina and our dedicated community partners, will come together to observe Overdose Awareness Day. And whereas, as part of the third annual Berkeley County Light the Way for Hope gathering, we will honor the lives lost to substance abuse and stand in solidarity with families and individuals affected, offering light, remembrance, and the assurance that they are never alone. And whereas the town of Moncks Corner is aware of the devastating impact caused by drug overdose, as we witness the daily effects upon individuals and families and the uncalculated cost in our community. And whereas Overdose Awareness Day is a time for us to remember those who have died from drug overdose and to acknowledge the grief endured by the loved ones left behind. And whereas we resolve to do our part in reducing the toll of overdose within our community through continued outreach, education, and support, affirming that every person affected is someone's child, sibling, parent, and neighbor, deserving of love, dignity, and hope. And whereas the town of Moncks Corner is deeply grateful for the compassionate individuals and organizations who selflessly dedicate their time and talents to assist those struggling with substance abuse. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the town of Moncks Corner hereby designates Monday, August 31st, as Light the Way for Hope Overdose Awareness Day, and encourages all residents to raise awareness, connect others to life-saving resources, and share in the promise of recovery. Would you like to say a few words? Yes. At the podium.
Just want to do the right thing.
Go ahead, speak.
Okay. I'm trying not to get emotional. This is a really important thing, and I'm grateful to the town of Moncks Corner. It takes a town and our community partners and those that hold that door open for every family member and every person that has been impacted by substances and substance use disorder. It would not have been possible without opening that door, without you, Mayor, and the council, and our partners, Darnell and Wamey, and all of those that keep that door open. So I want to thank you so much, so very much.
Jail, you want to say anything?
Overdose Awareness Day is a day to remember those lives that were lost to overdose. A chance to support those families that carried those losses, and to show those that are still struggling that recovery is possible.
Y'all come up here and let's do the proper presentation. Get a little hug first. Come up here. Approval of minutes from budget workshop minutes, July 14th, 2026.
Motion to approve. Second.
Second? Latory? Oh, Jay. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Regular meeting minutes, July 21st. I have a motion.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Mayor's report. Not as long as usual. I took the family to Dollywood this month, so wasn't a lot on my agenda. July 29th, I attended the swearing-in ceremony for PFC Police Officer Jonathan Ayer and Joshua Phillips. July 31st, I attended the Berkeley Training High School Class of 1958 reunion. I presented 6 proclamations on behalf of the Town Council and myself. Chief Richardson and Jackson also attended and addressed the attendees. August 1st, I attended the Berkeley One event at the Recreation Complex, which drew thousands of attendees. I want to thank the Recreation Department, Public Service Department, Moncks Corner Police Department, and the Town of Moncks Corner Fire Department for being out there to help keep that thing going smooth. August 7th, I attended the promotion ceremony for Officer Tommy Harger, who was promoted to corporal. August 7th, I attended the 2nd annual No Filter Friday, a teen night to connect and chill, hosted by our own Councilwoman Latory Lloyd. This is a chance to bring youth in our community together and just have open conversations. We had Mackenzie Cone from the fire department come and speak to them on that event. August 8th, I attended the book bag giveaway hosted by Charlemagne, a nationally recognized media personality and recent recipient of a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In addition to providing book bags filled with school supplies, Charlemagne purchased all the food for the attendees at the event. August 15th, I participated in the 2026 Car, Truck, and Motorcycle Show hosted by the Moncks Corner Police Department. Council members Dennis and Dingle and Leroy helped hand out some trophies. We're in attendance. A special shout out to Miss Susan Gilmore, who showed up on her day off to help people register for the event. It takes a village to put these things on. I believe they raised almost $2,400 for Wake Up Carolina. Officer Hobart, that is his baby. It's something that he's very passionate about, and every year I think it gets better. And that's my report. Administrator report.
Yes, sir, Mayor and Council, I have a few updates for you. The Lacey Park project is underway and still on track. So it's a year-long process, but so far it's moving along. And, you know, we acquired the adjacent property on the corner of Murray and Main, and we are currently doing the design of that parking area. So that's moving along as well. The NRCS project, also moving along. We've had 20 properties express interest and submit the paperwork. Of those 8, we have all the paperwork and have been submitted to NRCS for approval. And we have heard from 8 that they are not interested. And we didn't expect everybody to participate, but 20 interested and 8 not. And there's probably still another 12 we're waiting to hear from. So I think it's going pretty well. One update on the Winter Street project, that one's done. And if you remember, we were trying to get that project done because we wanted to apply in the fall round to RIA for the Main Street project. Now that is that bridge replacement right next to Lacey Park. We already have funding from the EPA for some of it, and we're going to apply to RIA for the other part. We have learned that RIA wants us to make sure that the EPA funding is secured, so we won't be applying in the fall. We'll be applying in the spring. Unfortunately, that does delay the project about 6 months, but it's still a really good project. And if things go as the current schedule is expected, then this time next year, y'all will be approving the bids for that project to move forward. So just a quick update on that. And also want to let you know that the youth field lighting upgrade that was scheduled to be done this year is now complete. That's the transition over to the LED. The only field left is Field 3, and that is in the budget for next year. So once that's done, then we will be done with that conversion. Happy to address any questions you may have.
Thank you. New business. Consider a conditional zoning map amendment, CZ-26-03, request for a parcel, TMS 142-00-01-009, totaling a little under .86 acres located at 311 West Main Street. The parcels are requesting to be zoned conditional zoning, general commercial, CZC2. Community Director Westbrook.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. As you mentioned, this is the first reading of a rezoning request for a one parcel that is currently zoned TD to CZ, conditional zone C2. TD is basically our transitional district. It links our commercial to our professional offices to the surrounding residential community to make sure that buffer is there. Obviously, it's low density commercial and does require a special exception on a case-by-case basis, or requires a special exception so we can look at it on a case-by-case basis through the Board of Zoning Appeals. Office institutional, which is C1. The C1 is those uses that are allowed in the TD with a special exception to BZA. Our personal service establishments, basically offices for dentistry, for insurance agencies, for CPA firms, things of that nature. Beauty shops, basically low intense uses that have limited outdoor storage, limited coming and going with regard to commercial traffic, and basically kind of bridge that gap, as I mentioned, between home occupation and a little bit something a little bit more intense. Not retail though, and definitely not food services with drive-throughs or over 2,000 square feet. Now C2 on the other hand is our most wide opening zoning district, and that is the request. Start with C2 and then strip out certain uses. We always like it to do it that way because it's a little bit of a misnomer to do C1 and then add uses to it. And then it's just good planning practices as opposed to starting with C2, which is what we're suggesting, and then strip all uses out of it that are offensive and likewise. That being said, C2 is service establishment which performs services off-site, and that's key for the end user here, not the applicant itself, but one tenant that's already in the property that we're working with to move forward, but services dwellings and other buildings. That's the off-site premise. So again, you can do personal services on-site, like hair, taxes, things of that nature, and then there are the uses that are a little bit more intensive, which has the commercial traffic, the trucks, outdoor storage, associated uses like HVAC contractors, landscaping companies, plumbing companies, and things of that nature. The permitted uses for the TD district is one-family detached dwellings. That's the only thing by right. As I mentioned, you can do C1, which is the low-intensity office institutional type uses, but with special exception on case-by-case basis before BZA. The property in question is highlighted in red. Everything south of West Main Street is zoned R1, with the exception of the subject parcel, which is C2. Some of the properties across West Main to the north of the roadway is zone C2, very minimum. Most of them are churches and religious institutions or associated uses, such as a funeral parlor. Obviously, you see Berkeley High School in the top left corner, and then St. John's in the parking lot on the very far right of the picture. Again, this is the picture. It's really hard to see R1 to TD, but that is the only TD zoning district. It's my understanding that it was zoned TD to make sure that home occupation that was there was allowed to remain when the residents actually moved out to keep their business on location. At least that's the story and understanding that I have. Obviously was not here for that, so I can't speak 100% on that, but seems plausible. And then you can see, obviously, everything south of West Main Street is zoned R1, which only allows residential. And most things north of West Main have some C2, but also some R1, a little bit of TD, and so forth. As I mentioned, most of the things south of it is single-family detached. You have some churches to the north, everything to the east, single detached. Some vacant lots, but zoned R1. Now, C2 for conditional zone. Conditional zoning for C2 can be primarily characterized as retail, office, service establishment. The permitted uses that are being requested are the following. All types of business, commercial activity related to retail, sales, business, professional offices, financial institutions. Repair garages, gasoline filling stations. Now that has been taken out, so it's a slightly old slide that was taken out since Planning Commission, and I'll get to that in a minute. However, generally recognized service establishments, off-site services, and that's what is being added in. Services off-premise include, but not limited to, dwellings, other buildings, lawn gardens, disinfecting, exterminator trees and shrubs. Excluded uses, so basically everything in C2 that would normally be allowed, the applicant is seeking not to have permitted to help kind of make sure that this is a palatable request. Even though it will be C2, the following will not be allowed as it would be in other C2 districts. Restaurant, bars, tap rooms, taverns. Obviously the proximity to residential would make that problematic. Private clubs, hotels, motels, nursing assisted facilities, automotive services and car washes. That includes body shops, transmission repair, things of that nature, as well as car washes. While the landscaping is done on a use-by-use basis, the zoning is wide open with regard to setbacks and signage as well, which I'll get touch base on in a second. New used car sales, mobile home dealers, fuel refineries, transportation facilities, bus depots, outdoor advertising agencies such as billboards, things of that nature, communication services, and paper products and finishings. Special exceptions remain, so they could still seek a special exception for public parks, playgrounds, governmental facility, many warehouses, churches, and non-modular buildings used for habitation. At this point, with this request, staff will not require TIA. However, should a more intense use come in, we do reserve that right per the zoning ordinance and that ability. The adopted policy guidance that y'all passed in 2024 does identify this area as rural character or rural town residential, which is loosely defined by the comp plan as rural character of neighborhoods, recognizing the close proximity to transportation services, mainly streets, West Main being the main thoroughfare, and that do not generally follow, and it goes on basically on the design of neighborhoods, but this is not really, it's a one parcel. Again, the parcel highlighted, you can see the rural town transitional, to the north, the south, down West Main, further in both directions. You have the institutional, which is obviously the high school. You have the darker light, or darker, I guess it's still yellow, but the darker yellow going back towards town is town character residential. So the comp plan does identify most of West Main, particularly in this area, to be residential. It is in harmony with one goal and implementation strategy, though, that enhance economic opportunities by the retention of business and services, and the end user, I believe, is local business. So they are hoping to get more commercial abilities for town and town residents as well as existing businesses to expand. Staff analysis, obviously, as I mentioned, it's not consistent with the town plan. Now, that's a data point. It's not the end-all, be-all, but it is something to note. Signage. In our review of that, particularly recently with some of the conversations we had with sign contractors, while C2 and the request is limiting certain uses that can go there, as I mentioned, this is for uses, not for C2 zoning designation, and those items with zoning that come with it, such as signs and parking and things of that nature, particularly buffers and setbacks. So a C2 sign is allowed on this zoning district as it's currently written. Landscaping may not be needed. Screening, obviously, as I mentioned before, I believe the end user will be a HVAC contractor, which outdoor storage is very prominent in those uses. I don't know whether that's going to be the case with this one or not, but it is worth noting for staff. And then truck equipment screening may be required, and we would look at that. Should they add impervious or parking area, the zoning ordinance would then step in and provide appropriate measures to mitigate those impacts. Obviously, right now, none of that would be required because none of this would be allowed, but this request is seeking to do that. Signage, on the other hand, is done by a case-by-case basis and done by zoning districts, so it's not done by uses. We can't have a certain standard for a church and a certain standard for a drive-through restaurant. If they're in the same zoning district, that's the best way to do it, and that's generally the common planning practice throughout the Southeast. That being said, Planning Commission did hear this. They did have concerns around potential auto body shops and gas stations. 4 members of Planning Commission did attend, and 2 of them really had concerns about that. That being said, the motion was made to include, remove auto body shops and gas stations from the request. At that point, it failed because of lack of majority, 2-2. So 2 members were okay with it because it was seconded. 2 members thought that didn't go far enough, is my assumption. But the applicant proactively removed those 2 just in case for the request moving forward. So the applicant has shown a propensity to work with staff and Town Council and Planning Commission to make sure that this is the most appealing use of the land while achieving everybody's goals, including the town's. Staff recommends consideration. We can see some challenges with it, particularly with signage and particularly with outdoor storage, which we have yet to kind of attack and see how that's going to work. However, you know, it is the request and does fall in line with at least one goal and implementation strategy of the comp plan. That's why we're kind of agnostic about it. However, Planning Commission did recommend denial based on their lack of majority on their vote. That being said, Planning Commission was held July 28th. This is the first reading, August 18th. Second reading, should this pass tonight, and public hearing should be September 15th. I'm available for any questions. Do you have any? I believe the applicant's in the audience, Mr. Mayor.
Justin, this one I've been going back and forth on. I think the applicant has definitely worked very well with staff on addressing a lot of issues. My concern is to rezone with all these restrictions. That tells me it's not the proper zoning. Why are we having to heavily, you know, censor what can go on that property? And what is that going to do if it's not an HVAC company? You know, worst case scenario, is there a worse use that could go there and then we don't have anything that we can do to stop it because at that time it's C2?
Yes, sir. So to answer the first part of the question is why are we censoring it? Staff has a very limited ability to stop applications from coming forward. It's what we try to do is help the applicant put the best foot forward. And sometimes that may not always be a good foot. For example, 15% is better than 12%, but it's still 15%. That's an analogy that I like to use with applicants. So when they come to me and they request a certain zoning or they have a vision, my job and my goal is to try to get them there, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be an easy path or a fruitful one at the end. We did work with the applicant, and like you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, the applicant's been very easy to work with and talk to on limiting the number of uses. The body shop and gas station was something Planning Commission pulled out, but to your point, it can be, there are some challenges, unforeseen or foreseen, when you add a ton of conditions to make a certain rule. The best policy obviously is in terms of making caveats of that nature is just to either outright approve or outright deny it. Obviously that is not a world that we live in and we have to adjust accordingly, but the more caveats and limitations that you put on it, the more likelihood that there is some cracks to find and potential, to your point on the second part, to find uses that may or may not be foreseen. For example, if this was seen, it could be a landscaping contractor company. It could be a variety of uses. Now, the applicant did do a very good job of limiting the uses that we felt were egregious, and she agreed with, such as restaurant, bars, and tap rooms, hotels, and automotive services and car washes. Obviously, a car wash surrounded by residential would be problematic. The applicant agreed with that. However, recognized service establishments off-site, as well as any financial institution or gasoline and repair, scratch that, but personal service shops and limited wholesale activity. So the site doesn't bode well for this, obviously, and this is impossible. dimensionally, but Sam's Club, I mean, that could be a wholesale. It could be a lumber yard that sells wholesale to contractors. You know, and I'm spitballing here. A lot of these things are very conceptual, and the zoning ordinance hopefully should take into account some of that, such as higher landscaping standards, and the lot size is not really conducive to this request. But to answer your question, it could be a variety of uses that we don't foresee. Unfortunately, staff is very limited by, we don't know what we don't know.
Can we not simply just apply for a variance on this?
In the state of South Carolina, you can't do a use variance.
Cannot do a use variance.
A variance is limited to a dimensional standard only.
Well, my position on this is it was a commercial business before.
Yes, sir.
We have stipulations within our ordinance that restrict restaurants, liquor stores, all of that stuff, because we have religious organizations all around there. There is a 300-foot rule door to door, so I'm not worried about that. But to me, this was always commercial, and now you're getting into the nitpicky stuff of whether it's this commercial or that commercial. But an HVAC business is not going to be in business long if all of their cars are parked at that business all day. Those folks get in early, they leave early, they come back. Some don't even bring their cars back. And a lot of business is not transacted on site like it would be at a Sam's Wholesale Club or a Piggly Wiggly. Everything's remote. They just need basically a storefront, if you will, for a presence. Another thing is, they're operating typically Monday through Friday. Weekends are generally calls, so there's not going to be traffic there to interfere with the AME church, the Lutheran church, and those folks at all. So I don't know, this seems kind of nitpicky, because on the other side of the road, according to that zoning map, it looks like we have a bunch of residences on that side of the road as well in C2 from Lord only knows when. I mean, before any of us were born. So I just don't know. I mean, I agree with the mayor as far as we're having to nitpick this, but I think this is one of those special circumstances that we can go around. I don't see someone wanting to put a Jiffy Lube there. I don't see someone wanting to put a Sam's Wholesale Club there. But at the same point, I want to protect the existing religious organizations. I know there's a parsonage next door, that sort of thing, but you also have Dial Murray right across the street. They're open 7 days a week doing funerals. So I just feel like we're beating this up when it doesn't need to be beat up that bad.
Well, and I
now
think,
go ahead.
and if I may, I think you're going to see more of this moving into these districts, especially with these small businesses, as they try to afford commercial districts. I mean, you know, some of these people are small family businesses that are starting to compete with corporate businesses coming into the town limits, and we're going to have a problem with that. You know, those people push up rates that a lot of these small businesses can't afford. So we're probably liable to see more and more of this wanting to move into these smaller districts like this, into areas that they can afford. So I think what we have to do is we have to look at it and make a decision that works best for the town and works best for its people. I think the truck and the screening area is important. I think, you know, we need to make sure that if they're going to have some type of storage vehicles there, that it be behind something that is not visible from Main Street. And if that's something we need to add in, I think that's important.
So another thing we could add in there is go ahead and move it to C2, but if the property changes hands, we record, you cannot do that?
No, sir.
The county made me do that, so something's going on.
It's my understanding by state law, zoning does not refer based on who owns it. You can't change zoning like that. It still requires a decision by y'all at the time, and that may not be y'all in that present sense. So for example, if you say the zoning will change whenever the property changes hands, and every single one of y'all not been reelected or whatever, that's a decision for the council at the time of the sale. So it essentially is a backdoor to rezoning and providing stipulations that future councils, and it's their decision, don't have the ability to make anymore.
But I think you have significantly reduced the uses to a point that it is a controlled conditional use. Justin, there was a slide, if you could, that talked about mini storage or something like that.
In case in point, if you go across the road, and Jay, I'm not meaning to pick on all of your family, but if they decided to all pick up and sell their property, basically from the AME Church to Berkeley High School and behind there, they could go in there and put a super Walmart, because it's currently zoned C2.
I'll let them know. I appreciate it.
Just give me a commission.
Justin, these were the things that were not allowed, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
There was something that was, can you go to that allowed permitted uses thing?
I thought the signs and the screening or whatever.
Okay. I don't know what I saw, if that's the right page.
So Justin, you brought up something about the signage.
Yes, sir.
And can you explain that to me, please?
Yes, sir. This request was only limiting uses, so the C2 zoning district was going to be the base district. We do signage based on the zoning district, not the use. So in that case, C2 zoning would defer, and in C2, you're allowed a 15-foot tall sign illuminated internally that can exceed, I believe, up to 100 square feet in size.
So what's the zone, if it was C1 zoning, what's the signage?
So it would be 6 feet in height, not to exceed 16 square feet, and not internally illuminated.
So can we do that? I mean,
Yes, sir.
change it to C1 signage?
That is, and I can work with the applicant between now and the next meeting, or y'all can dictate that through this conversation. I'd advise letting us work with the applicant to see if they're amenable to that.
Okay.
And if we can bring that to you, I'd like to do so.
Okay.
I was going to go right there with them. That was an awful big sign for that stretch of road, so I could,
Yeah, a small sign with some landscaping lights shooting on it at night, be fine, if that. I mean, they may have a street light there where it's naturally illuminated.
Now, they can externally illuminate the sign, so a
Just not
ground,
an internal.
a little flood, but the internal is, and, you know, I can talk signs all day, but that gets a little egregious if you're not used to it, and that's kind of a dark street.
Right.
Comparatively speaking. Further down East Main, on the other hand, sees a little bit more.
And nobody needs to challenge me on this because I could be wrong, but I think from really about the subway back towards Berkeley High School, it's mostly monument signs from that point anyway, isn't it?
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
Okay.
Now, you could still do a 15-foot tall monument sign. At that point, I think staff would probably have some concerns about site triangles, but most people aren't building 15-foot tall monument signs unless you're a shopping center.
Justin, is it your I'm sorry. Go ahead. Is it your recommendation that you would pass us with the C1 signage if we wanted to do that and make that, or be your suggestion with that? How to handle it best?
I think that's a good step. I'm always wary of saying that this is the best deal because like I said, I've seen too many things come through across my desk in my career where they promise me the moon and I end up, in a very bad spot. Now, that is not to say, obviously, that's not speaking to this particular applicant or any applicant in general. It's been my experience that if I go on and put myself out there, I could be wrong. With that caveat of adding C1 signage into that, I think that's an excellent way to mitigate that fear. To Mr. Councilmember Sweatman's point, adding additional landscaping may be another way to mitigate, particularly anybody from the south or the sides of the property, along with requiring any outdoor storage to be behind the building. I think that addresses most of the concerns that we have identified right now. Now, is there a way for somebody to, get this in trouble in the future? Absolutely. You always have that risk, though. So I think those three things would be something that I would be happy to work with the applicant, make sure that she addresses or at least considers and brings back to y'all, and appears to address all of the concerns that I've seen from my vantage point now.
My biggest concern is obviously that I don't want to hold up a business from being able to operate during this time when we're trying to get this all squared away. So are we making sure of that is still a possibility for them to be able to operate during this time?
Yes, we're not shutting them down. We're letting them, because they're good faith negotiating with us, so we're working with them.
In regard to screening, I know you mentioned that earlier. Is there a way that we could have the applicant put up fencing or something to protect the visual of all their vans and their utility storages and stuff? And then my second question also is, normally you will give a clear approval. In this situation, why did you only recommend consideration? Like, what's the overall hesitation?
Yes, ma'am. So to answer your first question, this council has full ability to put conditions any way y'all see fit on this type of request. If this was a straight C2 zoning, y'all would be very limited to do that. In this case, the applicant has opened herself up to the ability to hear from y'all and impose those conditions. Should she not agree, you simply turn it down because your fears have not been addressed. But you obviously have that ability because it is conditionally zoned. We still have some flexibility. It'd be my recommendation at this point to allow me to work with the applicant to make sure that the screening, the signage, and potentially outdoor storage is addressed at the next meeting, as she graciously did between Planning Commission and this meeting. Like I mentioned, she's worked very well with staff in that regard. To answer your second question, staff is always hesitant to offer a recommendation if we don't see a very clear path forward. In this case, we can see it both ways. We do see the fear that this could turn into a very egregious use. While none pop off my head right off in the immediacy, I'm always wary of the unknown. However, I also don't like to recommend approval for a user. My goal is to protect the town from day one to infinity. Whether it's this end user, whether it's this specific business or not, I've got to treat this as I've got to hope for the best and expect the worst. And the worst is always the unknown. So unless it's very clear that I can protect this town from any future endeavor or future issue that may or may not come up, I hope not, but it may, I'm very hesitant to recommend approval. So if I recommend approval, I feel like y'all are protected as best I can. In this case, I'm unsure. I can see it, but I also have questions, and it sounds like some of these concerns are shared by y'all, but we can address them as well.
Anybody else? Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? First reading, an ordinance to amend ordinance number 2025-08 and the budget attached thereto, and to adjust certain revenues and expenditures for the fiscal year ending 2026.
You got the-
All right, Administrator Lord.
Yes, sir. Mayor and Council, so, every year, of course, we adopt a fiscal budget, but at the end of the fiscal year, we true up any differences between what we started with the budget and what we're going to end up with. A budget is a policy document. We try to predict the future, but we're always wrong. And this is just where we go back and we say, well, we received less revenues here than we expected, or we ended up with this. Like, for example, we had to buy new vests for our police officers, which wasn't expected. So those are the things that we come in at the end of the fiscal year and amend the budget so it incorporates all the things that we've done during the year. So this is the first reading. We usually do it first reading and second reading together with the budget for the next year. But with schedules, this one's running one meeting behind. So this will be the first reading for this budget adjustment.
Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Consideration bids for accounting services for the Town of Moncks Corner financial statements for fiscal year 2026 through 2028. You gonna take that, Justine?
I'll take it. So we have two firms that do, one for accounting, one for auditing. This is for the accounting services. They help put our financials and CAPRA together and do a review before our audit to help guarantee that we have a clean audit. And for the single, we send out emails to 15 different firms and post it on our site. Only one firm submitted for bid, which has been the firm we've been with for 10 years.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Consideration bids for auditing services for the town of Moncks Corner financial statements. Did I already do that one? Okay, make sure I'm on the right one. Moncks Corner financial statements for fiscal years 2026 through 2028.
This is the second piece. This is our auditing firm. 2 people submitted for bid, and we are going with the lowest firm, which is the firm we've used for the last 10 years, which is Baird, is who we recommend for approval.
Motion to approve. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Old business, second reading and public hearing, an ordinance to raise revenue and adopt a budget for the town of Moncks Corner, South Carolina for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2026 and ending September 30th, 2027.
Yes, sir. So the budget in front of you reflects what was presented to you before, plus the changes that you made at the first reading. This budget continues to respond to the growth that the town's had while maintaining a very strong financial position, very importantly, with no tax increase and no structural fee increase like impact fees or stormwater fees or sanitation fees. The revenues are projected to be about $24.1 million in the general fund, with expenses at $22.4 million. So that gives us about $1.7 million going into the fund balance to build that reserve, so you've got it for your planned capital projects. And so you're continuing to maintain that very strong fund balance and reserves. It does include the 2% merit increase, which we do every year, and it's 2% based on the total salary for the budget. We do have new positions focused on public safety, growth, planning, stormwater, HR grants, and technology. So there's a lot of categories we're hitting in these new positions, but we're really trying to backstop a lot of these core functions that we're trying to do. Major investments in police and fire staffing, technology upgrades, equipment replacement, recreation improvements, and stormwater projects are also included. Impact fees and grants are very helpful with this budget and are being used where appropriate to help offset those growth-related expenses. Overall, the goal is for us to keep up with the growth, maintain our service levels, invest our employees, and remain fiscally conservative. I would say that this budget is about strengthening our public safety and our internal capacity, which is why we have those new positions, while maintaining the infrastructure that we have, and really trying to move more into economic development so that we can further buttress the revenue sources that we have to provide services that our citizens expect. And again, with no tax increase.
Yes. At this time, I'm going to call for a public hearing on the budget. Is there anyone that would like to come up and speak? Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Public input. If you signed up for public input, I will call your name. Please come up to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. This time is to give citizens a chance to give the town officials feedback. If you would like any follow-up and have checked the box on the sign-up sheet, someone from the appropriate department will be in touch. This meeting is for the council and I to conduct the business of the town of Moncks Corner. Our first person is Mr. Walter Brown.
He's going to decline.
Okay, well, thank you. Our second one is a Mr. Bruce, is it Francis? Yes, oh, Mr. Francis, hello, Pastor.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and to council members. My concern,
Oh, can we get your name and address
Bruce
for the record?
Francis, 309 West Main Street, Moncks Corner, South Carolina, 29461.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. It took me a while to learn that. Yes, sir. We being Moncks Corner AME Church were not made, I just want to say that we were not made aware of this proposal until 24 hours ago. Secondly, do you not have a requirement that some type of zoning proposal signage be displayed before any actions take place? Third concern, why were we not notified that this initiative was in place, seeing that our property sits right next door to where you're proposing to change the zoning, and the church is right across the street, as this gentleman right here made note of. My fourth concern is I feel that myself, along with officers of the church, should be afforded the opportunity to sit down with the owners of the 311 West Main Street property and whoever else is involved in negotiating and making any decisions as it relates to the zoning of the property. Because not only does it affect them, but it affects us because we're right next door. So whatever you want to do, we should have some input, actually along with the community, when you want to do something like that. Now, I don't have a problem with the HVAC company being there. They've been very nice. The owners have been very nice, but to be left out until this very point, I find that to be very difficult to swallow.
Justin, you want to come up and?
Thank you.
Yes, sir. State and zoning rules state that we post the property 15 days before the public hearing. We don't post the property before public meetings, which is why we don't do it before planning commission or the first reading of town council. Tomorrow is the first day that we can put in, because state law requires, I believe, 15 days of notice in the newspaper and a locally circulated advertisement. And tomorrow's deadline to put in the Berkeley Independent. So we usually do it the day after the first reading. But we only have to advertise by state law the public hearing. We don't have to advertise the public meeting. However, that has been part of the property, that has been, obviously, we do post the agenda for both planning commission and town council at least a week in advance, along with the entire staff report. Should anybody want to reach out to me, and there has been a long list of them throughout the three and a half years I've been here, of people that aren't the applicants but do want to receive the packet for that specific case, we're more than welcome to send it and share it with anybody and everybody. Transparency is our goal. However, you know, we are limited based on what state law and our town ordinances require us to do. Mailings adjacent does not happen in the state either, but obviously it's a very considerable expense as well, but I'm open to working and letting anybody and everybody know of the actions of staff and the applicants to this town council as well as planning commission.
Okay. I'll make sure, Justin, get one of your cards and make sure Mr. Francis has it. And that way, any questions you have, we're definitely here to share information, and we're not trying to hide it. But I hope that explained our process. All right. Adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye.